Welcome to the Homeowner Connector, bringing you the best. It is my honor to have as my guest today, Connor Hagwood, owner and operator of Align Fence Builders. Hey, Connor,
Hey, Ms.
welcome.
Zerby. Hi, Ms. Zerby. How are you doing today? Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you. Now, as I've asked all of my guests, what is one myth that you'd like to bust about fence building?
I would say the myth is a lot of homeowners think that they can either build a fence or that a fence is just a fence. But there is an underappreciated workmanship that goes into building a fence. Whether it is the post being properly leveled, for wood fence, the pickets being aligned properly, and that sort of thing. That is it's underappreciated workmanship that comes along with the fence. And if you want a long-lasting fence, I believe it's very important to be done properly the first time.
So you can't just, anybody can't just order a fence building kit and stick it out there. It's more
They can,
complicated than that.
and certainly I have replaced some fences before from
Ooh,
customers who have had somebody extended in the family install their fence, and you really do get what you pay for. And it is just very important to do it properly the first time. And there are tricks of the trade. There's certain tools you have that the average homeowner or the average person might not have. And so, they will get by with some tools, and it really is important to have the right tools also.
tools make a big difference
Yes,
in
ma'am.
whatever you're doing. Whatever skill the skill is one thing, but having, the right hammer or the right wrench or the screwdriver or a post hole digger, whatever, it makes a world of difference. We certainly would
Yes,
want a
ma'am.
doctor to have the right tools if he's doing surgery. And it's the
Exactly.
same thing, I would think, with fence building. You just got to do it right. That's why you need a professional like Connor Hagwood of Align Fence Builders to build your fence. Second question I ask my guests, two fun facts or trivia facts or two words, the job jargon that go along with your profession.
Okay. I would say, as far as a fact goes, most people will think an auger. Most customers refer to it as a digger. It is a man-operated auger that is an earth drilling bit, so it helps you dig the hole. Most customers will think that makes the job a lot quicker, and it does make it quicker. There's no denying that. However, it's still work. It doesn't make the job much easier. It is easier in some form. It is a little bit faster, but you still, if you hit a rock or hit a root with an auger, then you have to dig the hole even wider, which means more concrete. So it has its pros and cons, but I would say that's the first thing. People are really surprised when I show up to a job and I don't have an auger. They just think that it's the fastest thing. The
So wait,
second thing,
so what is an auger? Is it an actual like motorized machine, or is it like the post hole thing where you stick it down the ground and pull apart and pull it up?
correct. An auger, there are different types of augers, but generally speaking, the auger it has a spiral bit. Usually,
Okay,
it's anywhere from 3 to 4 foot in length. The circumference could be anywhere from 6 to 10 inches, and has a motor on it, and it will spin and it will drill into the earth. And as it spins, the way the bit is, uh, when it spins, the dirt will actually come out of the ground and it will
got
dig
it.
the hole. It should dig the hole faster, but not in all cases.
So you use the old fashioned, just stick it down and pull the things apart and pull the dirt up.
Yes, ma'am. The
So you
postal,
have a PhD, huh?
I do. And as a matter of fact, I have 3 PhDs.
Wow. Aren't you smart? Okay, second fact. Sorry, I
um,
interrupted.
the second fact is, for Durham County, most people aren't aware of there are fence regulations. There in Durham County, there is no requirement for a permit to build a fence. However, there are regulations in your front yard. It cannot be more. The height cannot exceed 4 feet. In the backyard, starting from the side of the house back to the backyard, cannot exceed 8 feet tall. Typically,
Hmm.
6 foot is normal. Not many people go over 8 foot, but there are regulations that come into play.
So you can build it, but you just have to make sure you build it right. Like,
Correct.
you don't have to get permission to build it. I wonder if
Correct.
why would somebody build an 8 foot, unless they're keeping the deer out? Why would they build an 8 foot fence? And who cares if it's 8 feet tall? Durham County.
Durham County does care. Yes, ma'am. Now, granted, there's HOA
Right.
rules and regulations. This is very general.
Okay, now 3 tips of the trade. What can you tell somebody that wants a fence? What are 3 tips?
I would say my first thing to do, if you live in a neighborhood that has an HOA, it is very helpful to know which HOA allows for fences, especially when I come for an estimate. It is very important. Usually, as I ride through a neighborhood, I can gauge, generally speaking, what type of fence is allowed due to the neighbors, and maybe if the neighbor has a fence that attaches or that they're going to attach to. But it's very important to it speeds things up when I know what HOA is required for that particular neighborhood.
Sure. I mean, what if somebody really wants a certain thing and you spend all this time getting an estimate and then they can't get approval?
Yes, and it has happened many times where customers want more than one estimate, which is fine. I don't mind, but it is helpful to know what I'm estimating, and when I get there, to make the estimate go smoothly and
Mm-hmm.
efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is, if you haven't had your lot surveyed recently, it's definitely a good time to have it surveyed, maybe by my friend Luke Riley. I'm sure he could be glad to hook you up. But if you live in a new development, it's typically very easy to find your property corners. However, if your house is really of any age, the property corners and the marks get disturbed either by landscaping and things like that. So it is very important to know where the lines are. We do not want to be building a fence on somebody else's property, because you may have to take it down.
That's not good. So
Uh,
can you build like right on your property, or is there a rule about how close you can build to your property?
The rule
Property
of thumb,
line. Mm-hmm.
right? The rule of thumb is to build as far as your sides go. 6 inches from your property line is a very safe bet. So that allows any issues with maybe a bad survey, bad neighbors, either anything that would disturb that. However, in some HOAs, they do. If you have the same type of fence, you are allowed to go up to the property line, as long as you and your neighbor both sign off on it and you're okay with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you join? Like, can you join your neighbor's fence and like you share a fence on the property line?
Yes, it is very, very common to share. I built some jobs actually recently where the two neighbors actually went in together, which is my third point. Is if you talk to your neighbor, they may be interested in splitting the cost of that one side of fence. So if you have 60 feet between your houses, each person
Wow.
can pay for 30 feet. With that, obviously, each person needs to use me for obvious
Well, of
reasons.
course.
Obvious reasons, but that is a cost-effective way for both neighbors to have the same type of fence. Now, some HOAs do require, if they have two certain types of fencing, as an example, they allow 6-foot vinyl privacy and they allow 6-foot wood privacy. Those fences usually cannot connect. You have to, sometimes you have to have a 3-foot barrier in between those fences.
Wow.
Each HOA is very, very different. So that is something to consider when building a unique fence in your neighborhood is,
Mm-hmm.
can your neighbor attach to it, and who is going to mow in between the two fences?
Right. That's important,
Yes, ma'am.
because who's going to claim the grass in between? Maybe
Correct.
nobody, or maybe they'll fight over who gets to mow it. Wow. So what do you like most about your business that you tell us a little history about it and we'll wrap up in about a minute.
Sure. Yeah, I had been building fences since I was a teenager. I had started working with a family friend here in Durham, and it was more or less a summer job at first, and then it grew into a more stable job. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot of the fence trade from him, and I'm very grateful for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have recently, in the last probably a year or so, I had ventured out on my own and building fences, usually for friends and family and sorts like that. And it came to a point when I was getting more and more calls, and I realized that this is a great time to get into the fence business for real. So I've been doing that for going on 10 years now, actually. Um,
You
yeah, 10
must have
years.
been 6 when you started. No.
I was pretty young. So
Right.
what I enjoy the most about the jobs is seeing the complete product at the end of the day. I really enjoy,
Mm.
it's very satisfying to get done with the job and to stand back and say, wow, I built that. And also, I really do enjoy writing to previous jobs from years past, and taking a little detour through the neighborhood to see how the fence is looking, and to tell the person I'm riding with that, hey, I built that fence. Um,
Yeah.
and
That's
one of my Yes, ma'am.
that's
So one of my
cool.
other favorite Yes, ma'am. So one of my other favorite things is most of the time the fences are for the family pet, usually the dog, sometimes more than one dog, and it is really fun seeing the reaction to the dog's freedom. They usually don't know what to do. They keep on running back and forth, really confused as to what's really going on. So
Mm-hmm.
that is also a highlight. Highlight, yes, ma'am.
Well, that's cool. Well, I am going to share some information. If you want to see pictures of his fence work, he's got them on Instagram. You can see beautiful pictures. But also, what's your favorite way to be contacted?
My favorite way is usually through phone or text. Texting is sometimes easiest, especially if it's late in the day. As I am right now, I estimate, I install, I am have my hands involved with all parts of the business. So texting is sometimes the best
Mm-hmm.
initial form of contact. Email is also great, and definitely follow me on Instagram. Trying to build up followers and see all the projects I've been doing. I've done a lot of projects recently. They're unique, and I
Mm-hmm.
enjoy the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go on my Instagram, you can see some new projects that I've been doing the last few months.
Well, what, just one real quick question left. How many different kinds of fences are there or have you done?
Great question. There are, as far as chain link goes, there are lots of different types of chain link. There is your standard silver or galvanized chain link. The galvanized fence can also be dipped to about any color you can imagine. Usually black, brown, green. Sometimes you put green or brown, or really black too. Back in the woods where it really blends in well with the
Mm-hmm.
trees and the landscape. So that comes in every color and every height you can about think of. Vinyl fencing also comes. Vinyl is vinyl privacy fencing is truly a privacy fence. The pickets interlock with each other,
Oh,
and
okay.
even when the weather contracts or expands, the vinyl is still interlocked in a form where it cannot be seen through. That's
Mm-hmm.
a very popular item around here. Wood
Mm-hmm.
fencing, there's lots of wood fencing. You can get privacy wood, you can get split rail fencing, which you see usually for looks, doesn't really keep anything in. Um, my favorite is the aluminum fencing. I really enjoy installing aluminum. It's one of those items that you see the results very, very quickly because you install it section by section. So that comes in. I install a lot of 5 foot tall. 5 foot tall is very popular right now. 4 foot tall was popular. I don't know how long ago, but right now 5 foot is most customers want 5 foot tall. It's that middle ground between 4 foot and 6 foot. 6 foot's a little too tall, 4 foot's a little too short. Why not go split the difference? So aluminum is very popular, and that can come with any styles. The gates can be sloped, they can be arched, they can be flat. You can have spears for security. It's really limitless to what type of fences there are.
Wow. So it's not just put a fence up, and it's not just I'm going to do it. It's called Connor Hagwood of Align Fence Builders, because he knows how to do it. It has been so fun to talk to you about your company, Mr. Owner and Operator. And I hope you get some business from this. People need to be calling you and looking you up on Instagram. So thanks again for being with us today, Connor.
Yes, ma'am. Thank
Goodbye.
you for having me. Bye. See you.